because that's where our immune system is. That's what really controls our digestion, our moods, our hormone production, a lot of these other things. And so I've tried out like all kinds of different things, and that's one of the reasons why, even though like most of the time I do ketogenic, primarily plant-based, I'm not afraid to, do more of the meat-based type of, ketogenic diets. I'm also not afraid to intake or to basically eat sugar, right? But for me, now it's more a matter of like, okay, now I understand that, hey, if I'm eating sugar, really what I'm essentially looking at is like something's got to eat up that sugar inside of my body, and it's either going to be a good probiotic, good yeast, or depending on what kind of sugar, what kind of like sweets you're eating, it will probably end up being some sort of wild yeast or bad bacteria. That's the issue with sugar, and I think that sugar really what one of the main roles, as I'm kind of like seeing it now, is that sugar is actually like a very useful tool when it comes to growing the good yeast and bacteria that we need for our gut health. And it's interesting because I'm kind of like learning a little bit more about soil health, and understanding that what we are really dealing with when it comes to a lot of these things that that I share, and things that I'm basically learning about, is really an entire ecosystem where the way that I'm seeing like my own diet is that I am essentially, if I don't watch my diet, if I don't watch what I eat, it's not really just about what I eat in my health. It's really more about the footprint that we are leaving in the planet. And here's what I mean by that is, to me, eating meat, for example, it's kind of like a controversial topic, right? Some people say like, well, that's one of the reasons why people are getting unhealthy, blah blah blah. And so this is kind of like the raw vegan community versus the carnivore community, I guess you would call it. Whereas for me, the way that I see it is that you can't really have one without the other, right? You can't really grow plants in all these good ecosystem without cattle, right? And this is where I am fascinated by a lot of these topics. My grandfather was a cattle rancher, and so understanding that, hey, without cattle, without the without the manure and all these things, you cannot have all these fertile soils. You cannot have all these rich, nutrient-rich soils. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm seeing happening in our food world, is that we are essentially being fed all kinds of I guess foods that are just nutrient depleted, because they are growing foods using primarily pesticides and these fertilizers, just relying on NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but they are devoid of all the other minerals that are really truly needed. And so I think that by understanding diet and understanding what we truly need inside of our bodies, not only are we going to basically make ourselves healthy, but we're also going to help with the environment, with the planet, because we're basically going to be growing better foods. And so I think that this is a bigger picture. It's not just about me, it's not just about you.